Did you get it?
I think so.
You better sleep.
Hello everyone and welcome. This channel just went above 500 subscribers, and before I get started today, I just want to say thank you for everybody for that, so thank you. A while back I did a video on making a reloading kit for the 410 cartridge, and in that video I showed this particular handgun, the Rexio Super Comanche, and I've had a lot of requests at kind of a closer look at the gun, as well as how I made the foregrip and pistol grips for this gun. So that's what I'm going to do today. We'll take a quick look at the Rexio Super Comanche in its original form. I'll kind of go over how I made the foregrip and things like that, and then we'll get into making a set of pistol grips, not for this particular pistol, but for a revolver, and the premise is the same. So let's go in the shop and get started. Here is the Rexio Super Comanche as I bought it 6 years ago. I bought this gun used and I paid like $150 for it. And I bought it just for like a boat gun, you know, dealing with snakes and things like that. And nowadays they're just about impossible to find. And if you do find them, they're more expensive than what I paid for them. The gun has a 7-inch threaded barrel and comes with 2 chokes. This one is the 410 choke, and this one is the 45 long Colt choke. And there's no special tool required to put these chokes on there. They simply just screw on. And it has just a standard shotgun bead sight. On this side of the gun, it has the manufacturer's mark made by Rexio, Argentina, and on the barrel it is stamped 45 LC 410. And on the other side of the gun, it has the import mark. The gun features just a simple safety right here on the side. Push that back and it prevents you from cocking the gun. And it features a rubber foregrip and rubber pistol grip. And overall, it is a ugly and clunky gun. When I was trying to find this particular gun, I knew that it was an ugly gun, but I had seen pictures of similar guns with wood grips, and that's what I wanted to do with it once I got it. So here's the gun after I added the wood grips and made a holster for it. And as you can see, there is a dramatic improvement to the overall appearance of the gun. Now this is the original rubber stock that goes on there, and you can see how much longer it is and clunkier it is than the wood foregrip that I made for it. I'm going to talk a little bit about how I made the foregrip for this gun before I get into making the pistol grips. To make this foregrip, I took a piece of wood and cut it down to 2 inches and then drilled a 1-inch hole all the way through it and then cut it off and sanded it to its final shape. Then I took just some stain, stained it, and then went over it with some shellac. So that's, you know, kind of a brief tutorial on how I made the foregrip for this. So let's get into making a set of pistol grips. The wood that I'm going to use for this is a number 2 cherry. I cut 2 pieces of wood out of a scrap piece of number 2 cherry that I had to make my scales or grips for my revolver. Now all I got to do is lay my grips on here and trace them out. With my grips laid out on my scales, I can go ahead and start rough shaping them. Now that I've got my scales kind of roughed out, I put my original grips on the roughed out scales, and I'm going to kind of outline them so that'll give me guidelines as we go to shape them. Now that I've got them outlined, I can go ahead and start shaping them. I got my grips to the size that I want them. And before I start doing any final shaping on them, I'm going to go ahead and start working on how they mount to the gun, like the notches on the inside, the screw holes, and things like that. With my notch and my hole done, kind of give it a little test fit, and it feels like it's going to fit pretty snug. So I believe this side will work. Start working on the other side. So here are my grips as they stand right now. As you can see, my grips are a lot thicker than the plastic ones, and I did that on purpose. Even after I get through rounding all this off and kind of finish shaping it, they will be thicker, and I did that by design because with the plastic grips on there, the gun did not really fit my hand that well. I needed some thicker grips, so that's the reason for that. All right, so with my grips fitting my gun, all I got left to do now is finish shaping them. I've got my grips final shaped, and before I do any sanding, I'm going to figure out how I'm going to mount it to my revolver. Now on the revolver, there's a screw that actually runs through both sides of the grips, and I think I'm going to try to omit this hole right here by drilling out like a small hole in the wood grips and epoxying a nut in there and running my screw through on this side so that when the gun is in the holster, you won't see any screw holes and things like that. I've got my holes marked for my screw, and what I'm going to have to do is drill through all the way on this side and then mate them together and use that drill bit to mark the other side. What I'm going to do is take and mark it and then kind of chisel it out so that the nut will fit in there better and then epoxy it. I believe that'll work. So I got the nut epoxied in and I'm going to let it sit overnight. I'll let my epoxy dry overnight, and I don't think this is going to work. I don't think it's going to have any longevity to it when I mount it to the gun, so I think I'm just going to go the traditional route of running the screw through the grips to the nut on the other side. I'm kind of bummed that the other design didn't work, but that's just the way things go sometimes, so I'm just going to keep moving forward with these. So here's my first bolt up of the grips to the gun, and I was really concerned about having that head showing through, but all in all, I don't think it's going to matter that much. Of course, there's the back side with the nut and the screw that I haven't cut off yet, and they do fit my hand pretty good. And all in all, I think I'm going to be pleased with them once I get them finished, sanded, and stained. The stain that I'm going to use for my grips is Minwax Gunstock 231. I find that this stain produces kind of a red finish, and it makes it really look like it's a, you know, kind of Western gun, I guess you'd say. So here's my first coat of stain, and I'm going to let these dry for a little bit and then add another coat to them. So here are my grips. I coated it with 2 coats of that gunstock stain and then 2 coats of shellac. Now I'm ready to mount them to the gun. took and painted the head on the screw and the nut, try to blend them in a little bit. And it fits my hand really well. So I'm quite pleased with those. They turned out better than I thought they would with me having to drill through them like that. But they don't slip anywhere or slide anywhere. And you could add checkering and things like that to them, but I like them just plain like they are. So here's kind of a close-up view of them. And they're not perfect. Like I said, they are handmade, so there is going to be a little bit of variation as in comparison to something that's machine made. So I can deal with that. So here is before with the generic skinny plastic grips. And here it is after with my homemade grips, or custom grips as some people like to call their stuff when they make it themselves. The grips themselves actually match my holster and gun belt really well. And as you can see, they're a lot thicker than the plastic ones that I had on there. And, you know, again, there are little minor imperfections in them, but I do actually, you know, use my guns. I don't just leave them in the gun safe, so they will get nicked up and things like that. So I'm not overly concerned about it, but they do look good. The total cost to make grips for both of these guns was $3, and you don't have to have any kind of specialty equipment or large shop or anything like that. The equipment I used on this was a 50-year-old table saw and a drill. The rest I just used, you know, some hand tools. And as for my shop is literally a 6x5 rectangle, which goes to show you that you don't have to have all the latest, greatest fancy stuff to turn out quality items. So there's my take on making a set of pistol grips for a revolver rather than going out and spending $100, $200 on a set of grips. So thank y'all for watching. We'll see y'all next time.